Hello everybody, it's Tommy and welcome back to another speed build for the Disney Save. Today, I am working on the final lot in the Willow Creek renovation. This is called Lafayette Cemetery N01 and it is a Princess and the Frog recreation. A cemetery, the first one for the save file. And it's not just any cemetery, it is actually one that exists in real life, fun fact, but it is a movie recreation and specifically a New Orleans style cemetery. The reason I bring that up, it might be a little bit different, I guess, than what I personally know a cemetery to be, so maybe for some of you this will be a little bit different. I'm from the East Coast of the United States, and I currently live in London, England. So when I think of a cemetery, I tend to think of headstones lined up on the ground, and that's pretty much it. You will occasionally see a larger monument or a larger mausoleum of some kind that is maybe for somebody really rich, important, or famous, but for the most part, it's going to be rows of headstones. And in my head, that is a traditional cemetery. But in New Orleans, this is not the case. It is actually more traditional for above ground tombs to be the case. This is what they called it when I did research, was above ground tombs. I believe that The Sims references these as mausoleums. It's one of the optional requirements for building a cemetery lot type. And it was given to us with Life and Death, but there's only one of those objects in the pack. And I am going to use it a couple of times in today's build, but you're going to see it as a pre-built building with an arch in it. It's the one with the little blue windows that's tucked in the corner of the lot currently, but I'm going to place it around a few times here and there. And it is a rabbit hole, if you will, in The Sims 4. You can have your Sims enter, and I'm sure there's certain actions in regards to that. But I'm going to be making a bunch of those on my own, and I'm going to reference those as above ground tombs for the rest of the video because that's what they were calling it when I was doing my research. Hopefully that makes sense. A couple things happened when I decided that I was going to make this. First of all, we got cemeteries with Life and Death. Very exciting, very unique lot type. Something like this has been needed in The Sims for a very long time. So when I came back to Willow Creek, the history of it, and I guess because this part of the world has such a particular type of cemetery that is very unique, it is a really great opportunity to go ahead and use it and build something that, again, I'll make other cemeteries in the future, and I actually have one planned coming up in the next world renovation, but it's not going to be the same as this one. So this is very, very unique to this area of the world. And Princess and the Frog has entire scenes that take place in a cemetery called Lafayette Cemetery N01. I didn't know that this had a named location to it. In my head, I remembered this being like maybe one very quick scene where Dr. Facilier meets his demise, and I didn't remember any details about it. I didn't even remember it being a large part of the movie. And I wouldn't say it's a large part of the movie, but several minutes take place in this cemetery, and there is quite a bit of reference that I was able to pull. I took tons of screenshots from the scenes that take place here, and that was how I was able to figure out that it's actually named, because at one point they go through the front gate, and on that iron front gate over the top, the archway says Lafayette Cemetery N01. So I googled that, and it doesn't really come up on Disney Wiki as like listed Princess and the Frog locations or anything like that, but it is a real cemetery in real life in New Orleans. And from what I could tell and my research on it, it is sort of an important one, a famous one that some important historical figures and immigrants of the time have been buried at. Now, important to note, I did not look at Lafayette Cemetery N01 in order to create today's build. There is a little piece of me that feels like it's a little bit disrespectful to make a recreation of a cemetery in this game, so I'm not using anything from real life as reference. I am using the movie. Now, do I expect that the movie probably used some real life reference? Possibly, but I don't really know either way. I only took screenshots from the movie and I didn't look at the cemetery at all when making the build. I did, however, before I even knew that this cemetery existed, before all of that, I did want to take a look at like some traditional New Orleans cemeteries and just get a look at it. So I went on Google Earth and had a walk through one of them, and I don't even remember which one that was, to be honest with you. I probably wouldn't name it if I did. But one thing that I did notice is these above ground tombs, the proximity in which they are built together and in in rows and in little clusters. They're almost built on top of one another, and that could be just the age and the space necessary for like doing something like that. Because again, like I'm saying, when I think of a cemetery, you don't need as much room to do just a headstone. These are entire little buildings that you can go into and that families purchase, and it takes up more space ultimately. So they end up very close together, almost kind of on top of one another, very intricately designed, lots of decorations, lots of intricate stonework and ironwork. I have no doubt that they are very personalized to whomever purchases them, or they have little meanings and memorabilia carved into them specifically with statues that are placed around them. And I feel like that's more of the decor versus with just a headstone on the ground. If you visit, you might put down some flowers, you might put down some little gifts and things for the person that is there, but these seem like they are meant to house like almost in a tomb-like way, like very Egyptian pharaoh-esque. Everything that that person was is you create a house for them in a sense. Specifically with the movie recreation, I wanted to accomplish a couple things here. So first of all, this giant tower in the middle of the build, that comes straight from the movie. It was visible in pretty much every scene, every portion of this part of the film. You can see this tower in the background, and that meant I had really good reference of it from pretty much all angles, and I wanted to make sure that was included as the focal point and cross it off in that way so that there's like a clear path and clear direction when you are going around the cemetery. I think I was really struggling with space a little bit here, and there is some jumping in today's video. I do want to just apologize right off the bat. I really struggled at the beginning of this build. I could not figure out how to lay this out, how neat I wanted it versus the chaos versus the historical age of the build, and maybe doing something that isn't like super tight, neat rows, because that might not have been exactly the look, or because we are on limited space here and the Sims do need to be able to get around, and ideally you'd like the Sims to be able to get inside every single one of these tombs, then you probably do want it to be a little bit neater so that the pathing can make sense and all of that. So it takes me a little while to find my footing and figure out where am I going to place everything? Am I doing just perfect rows? How many of these am I actually going to make? It starts to look a little bit like a village, and with the village builds, how many buildings am I going to do? And how many of them do I then have to decorate? It's a ton of time, it's a ton of work. Each little building becomes its own mini build, and I want to give every one of them the attention that they deserve. So you can't do too many, but you want to do enough to get the point across. I also didn't want this to be barren. I wanted greenery. I felt like that was something that I really noticed when I was looking at the one on Google Earth. There was a lot of the surrounding greenery of New Orleans growing its way into the cemetery. There were trees, there was lots of plants, there was ivy all over some of them, and it helps age them as well, and it gives a little bit of texture and like de-sterilizes the build, if that makes sense. As far as where I'm building today, this is the final neighborhood in the Disney Save Willow Creek renovation. This is the last lot that you guys will be seeing, and then we're done with this world. In the background, I've been working on my Willow Creek changes video for months now, and that is compilations of things that were changed in the background, mini speed builds, if you will, of other things in the Disney Save that got changed in this world, but were not enough to make their own speed build out of. I put all that footage together into one really long video. It comes out to being, I think, just under or around 3 hours long. It's very long and detailed, and it showcases all the stuff that's in between these new builds that you guys have been seeing. So some changes at lots such as the Dumbo Circus lots, Other Side Nightclub, New Orleans Square, Mama Odie's Treehouse, anything that feels like it's been skipped over in the past few months. It's probably been touched and edited in some regard as I've gone through and done all these renovations, but it wasn't enough to put out like all these crazy speed builds of builds that I've already done. So you guys have basically just been seeing the brand new stuff, and then I've been saving all my mini changes for this other video. That should be coming out next, and I've been working on it for a really long time. I'm very excited to finally release it. I hope you guys enjoy everything about it. I'm also going to be doing a tour video of New Willow Creek. The good news is everything feels so perfect and finalized, and I'm very happy with the end result of Willow Creek, more than I ever have been for any of the times that I've come here and done work. It feels very final. I will not be back to Willow Creek to do anything crazy, pending, you know, a pack that I'm not expecting, but I really wanted to walk away from this Willow Creek renovation feeling like there's no reason to ever touch this world again other than some light pack updating. And I really do feel that way now. So I'm really excited to move on from this. Now, as far as next steps, I'm doing another world renovation. There are 2 more coming up in the roster. One is a small world that's getting a lot of work, but it's not going to take a ton of time because it's just such a small world. And I'm actually not telling you guys what it is specifically because I announce it in my Willow Creek Changes video, so you will have to watch that in order to see what we're doing next. And then after that, it's no secret I've been talking about for a while, we're going to Hemford-on-Bagley to change a couple things. There isn't some like major renovations there the way that there was here, but I have a couple of little things that I need to change in order to prep everything and get some lots out of that world to move to Ravenwood, which is the ultimate end goal and where we're going to be building and the new world ultimately. This neighborhood in Willow Creek is the commercial district down by the water. It's the one on the overhead map that's in the bottom left-hand corner. And it currently contains New Orleans Square, which is a bar, but you can change it to many different lot types. Southern Dreams, the museum, Other Side Nightclub, which is right next door now and is Dr. Facilier's small business and residential, and now Lafayette Cemetery N01 that pairs over with that lot a little bit. It's kind of Dr. Facilier themed. It's also a Princess and the Frog recreation, and I wanted those 2 right next to one another versus the other 2 lots that are Disneyland themed and just like Disney themed respectively. This is also the largest lot in this little strip, so obviously it made the most sense to be able to put something like this here. You do need quite a bit of room to pull something like this off. But previously what was here was Chapter 3 bookstore, and that is obviously the Beauty and the Beast bookstore. I think that is getting moved to Hemford-on-Bagley. And the reason that I don't know is because honestly, I haven't looked at the Hemford-on-Bagley plans in months. And I'm sorry that I keep saying I'm not sure, but I don't think it's getting removed. However, I'm not sure. I will let you guys know when I know. There's another world coming up, and then I've been looking and planning for Ravenwood, and so Hemford-on-Bagley, I know what I want to do, and I know what the goal is, but I can't remember the individual details of where things are going and how it's getting moved. I don't need to focus on that right now in comparison to the other 2 worlds that were the first ones that I was going to be tackling. So that's the schedule. We're closing out Willow Creek today, then the big Willow Creek Changes video, then the tour video. So much exciting still to come to show off everything regarding Willow Creek. If you feel like you've been missing out or there's little moments where you're not quite sure what's going on, it's all going to make sense at the end of it. And then the new speed build for the next mini world reno I'm doing, which is to be announced. Very exciting though. The plans are some of my favorite. I am throwing a twist into the bit. Some of you are going to be very surprised by the direction that I'm taking the next world renovation, but I think it's ultimately, again, the right choice considering how many worlds we have in The Sims 4, how much space I now have. I can branch into things that are a little bit outside of what I ever originally intended to do, and I'm going to break some rules that I have stated and set for myself in movie choosing and things that I typically would avoid. I'll leave it at that. Now, as far as the build today, there's a few things going on here. I have sectioned this off into 4 distinct areas of the cemetery. There isn't necessarily anything significant about each quarter of the cemetery, but I did a few things. So in the top left corner, if you're facing the front entrance of the cemetery, which is obviously the gate towards the road, that front corner, or that left back corner, is gated off privately. And so everything else in the cemetery is very open and you can just walk around and go pretty much inside any of these mausoleums, but you have to have maybe special permission to go to that back left corner. And I thought of that in my head as a family dedicated area. So I think what I had canonized that as, that back corner was land purchased by a family and they had a few of these above ground tombs put on that section, and it's private. It's for them. There's also a statue in there. There's a couple of little things that maybe they had dedicated to that section. Now that's obviously just information, kind of what I was doing in my head, but you can roam throughout this entire cemetery however you would like to. I don't even believe that there is technically a way to lock gates and things of that kind on a cemetery lot, although I haven't playtested this yet. This is my first one and I was kind of learning, and I think that's also why I struggled so much with this in the beginning. This was a huge challenge and also something that I've just never done before, so it's a little bit intimidating in that regard. I also want to make sure I really get it right. All the other quarters are open and they don't have anything significant about them other than I wanted to make sure to obviously pull Princess and the Frog into this build as much as possible. So I think where you could have gone in the direction of just doing this very historically, very accurately, maybe even a real life recreation, I have gone a little bit more on the mystical, magical, spooky, voodoo, tarot side, specifically because, again, New Orleans. But Dr. Facilier comes here and he is chased by the spirits from the other side that he originally made the deal with, and he's running and hiding from them, and they ultimately end up dragging him to some kind of afterlife, netherworld, whatever you want to call it. This is where he ends his storyline. So there's magic here, there's voodoo, there's the spooky elements of it all, and I wanted to put some of those magical pieces into the cemetery for you to discover. Specifically with Life and Death, there are a couple of new items. There are some, like, and this comes from Debug, but it's this open, ancient looking book with all these candles on the ground. I don't know if you can interact with that item yet. I'm gonna see in play mode, but I thought it was really cool. There are also portals to the nether realm, and I did not know that. Very exciting. So similarly to how there are portals you can put in from Debug that take you to the magical realm, there are now ones that you can use for the nether realm. And I felt like, obviously, there needed to be a portal here that could take you to the nether realm. Like, that just makes the most sense. So there is at least one here, and basically what happens is you can enter each one of these above ground tombs and you're gonna have a different experience. Some of them are very traditionally decorated as a memorial, maybe a casket, maybe something where it's just a memorial with some urns. Some of them are the vampires' caskets that vampires are able to sleep in. Some of them are the ones that you actually just like view and look at from Life and Death. And then some of them, maybe the older looking ones, are more magically based. And when you go in, you will find magical items, whether it is voodoo dolls, portals to the magic realm, portals to the nether realm, candles and seances, some things going on, some magic currently underway. Use it how you will, ignore it if you want to. I thought that it would be nice to add in the occulty magic aspect to the build, but if I hid everything inside the buildings, then you could still view it as just like any normal cemetery, not very magic looking from the outside. And therefore it fits really well into the neighborhood and it all looks very cohesive on the map as well. If you think about Willow Creek, this isn't my most magical world. I think there are two spellcasters that live here technically, Mama Odie and Dr. Facilier. They are both obviously very powerful spellcasters, but even if you think about the roster of Disney magical characters, they're not super high up there in my head. So them being the only true, I think, real occults that live here, there are not a lot of reasons to put magic and magic-based things into this world, where some of my other worlds are very heavily occult and magic-based. This isn't one of them. So I didn't want this lot to feel almost fish out of water, or Alice in Wonderland, just like crazy looking, very glowy, and not fitting in with the rest of the very normal looking neighborhood that I have built here. Now, despite the fact that I did not want to, or I guess I didn't want the focus of the build to be too many headstones, I still wanted some of them here. And I think they're even required for the lot type. So I did dedicate a couple of small areas to that. There are some that are just scattered around and almost hidden within the bushes and the trees, kind of like they've been overgrown. There is a dedicated little section of them in front of the very first set of above ground tombs that I'm building. And then there are a few that are over in that family section that I was mentioning. Maybe those are ones that, again, they had put in the family area. That way there are both kinds, or all kinds really. There are a few different options as far as different preferences for how real life people like to mourn and how they like to participate in this. So I included pretty much all of them, but obviously the focus being the above ground tombstones. And then I also thought about other packs that might have referenced some kind of spirituality in any regard. And the only one that really comes up off the top of my head is Mount Komorebi. They added some pieces in that pack that have to do a little bit with spiritualness. So there is like a wishing house or a little, I'm not sure what the item is called. You can only place it outside and it's meant to make wishes. It might even be called a spirit house. I'm not sure what the proper terminology is, but I did ultimately end up using that. You might see something like it around or in front of a shrine, and I attached it to the exterior of one of these little buildings here. So they each have kind of something unique about them, or I wanted there to be some detail that you could make up some kind of story in your head. said, they're not generic in any way. When I do a lot of repetitive building in my builds, I will sometimes just tell you guys they're all copy paste decorated the same way. This is definitely not that, considering that you have to think about every single one of these would be purchased by a family or a group, or even maybe the person before they had passed, and designed specifically to them. And I think I can picture this in modern times. There might be like a cataloged book of options available or something like that, but I think most people would customize. Most people would have statues made in dedication to the specific person or details about them within the tombstone itself. So that makes sense to make them all different and interesting and detailed and have pieces of maybe some other cultures written within them. If you are living in this area of the world, but you also are of a different culture, then you're going to see things like that. Another way that I Princess and the Frogged this build a little bit more, because really I have movie references that I'm able to use, but so many of the scenes here are very, very dark, and it's hard to make out a lot of those details. And when the artist probably drew it, they almost don't have to give you a ton of details. They know that this is a poorly lit, dark cemetery, and the point is not really the background that I'm trying to reference. It is the characters running around on the forefront that are much better lit and shown with much more significance. So I can look at these references and pull out some little things, but it was even hard to look at them and try to pull out individual tombs for recreation. That's not really how it was drawn, and they were very much meshed together in these like ambiguous, almost city skyline looking. I hope that that makes sense. It was hard to distinguish like one from another, and so I'm not doing like recreations of those necessarily. The only real recreation is the one in the center, but then I still wanted to bring Princess and the Frog details into the build. So at the very, very end, after I got all of the floor planning done and figured out exactly how everything was going to sit here, I went back in and added some Princess and the Frog references. There are little frogs hidden all over the lot. I added some fireflies, those little sticker details for Ray. I added some pieces that very much screamed Dr. Facilier, and maybe even the shadows and the spirits that are chasing him through the cemetery itself. Unfortunately, and I have not done this in a very long time, I did not record that last portion, so it is not included today, but it's very minimally there. Like, it's little details around the build, and it might even be fun when you guys get to play with this and when you download it to go around and see if you can find some of them on your own so you can play a little hide and seek game. I apologize, but I don't normally do that. There's like one button that you can hit when you're recording that would cause you to stream instead of record, and I accidentally hit the streaming one, but it doesn't work anymore because I don't stream on Twitch any longer, but I thought I was recording and I missed that very end of the build there. Speaking of Twitch though, while I'm bringing it up, I would love to go back to streaming at some point, and I do get asked pretty frequently about the possibility of going back to streaming. So just so you guys know, I definitely have it on my list of things that I would love to be able to return to. My life is so much different than when I was streaming before. I live in a completely different country, and I am in a situation right now where honestly I can't stream because number one, it's so loud where I live. England is so much louder, or I guess I should say London is so much louder than you could ever possibly imagine. There are so many reasons why I think that this is the case, but even in the US, living in busy, bustling cities and busy neighborhoods, this house is the loudest I've ever lived in, and I am often battling with people outside doing things that require me to like change my schedule. I can't do audio recording, and occasionally in my videos, I'm not proud to say, you will hear people in the background because there is just always something going on. Somebody doing construction, mowing their lawn, the trash, people next door building a food truck, dogs barking, children running home from school, and it's just life. It's not like anything that is in anyone's control, and I don't expect perfect peace and quiet. But I have to say, sometimes it's excessive, and I think the way that the houses are built here, because they are sharing walls, because they're built in these rows, you almost create echo chambers of noise that just run right down the road in a way that I have never experienced, and it's been a battle to figure out like how to record, how to mitigate that, and ultimately where I am, it's not really fully possible. So when I move, yet again, we would definitely be looking for an environment that doesn't have so much of it. I live very close to a school. There are tons and tons of people always walking around where I currently live, and I would hope to be either higher off the ground and not so close to the road, or in a little bit of a quieter area. That would be the ultimate goal. But that's one of the reasons. The other reason is, unfortunately, there's just too many people in my house, and there's always noise, there's always people on the internet, it requires a ton of power to live stream, and I had a lot of issues with it even back when I did it. So you really need to have minimal internet usage when you're doing something like that, and I can't have 6 people over using all of the internet and be able to live stream. It's just not going to work. The last reason really being my room is not set up for it. I have a tight quarters here. In the UK, houses are not as big. Surprise, surprise. And I am still, as an American, adjusting to what I just ultimately feel is like lack of space. It's really been a big culture shock to me. Not having anywhere to put clothes, not having built-in closets. I am complaining a little bit. I love it here. There are many, many, many great things about living in the UK. I don't mean to sound like I'm complaining. I'm just giving you guys some of the reasons why it's been a challenge to be able to return to it. So I would like to. The goal is ultimately to do that, but I need to move. That is number one priority, and I need to find a space that gives me the ability to be able to get back to it. And so that is on the list of goals within the next year or so. Sometime late next summer would be the jumping off point for me. And I will keep you guys posted on that because I would like to get back into it. I miss doing all of that with the community. I miss sitting down with you guys and having live conversation, chatting about Disney movies, being able to get opinions immediately when I am building. I'm also just a much different builder and person now, so it would be so much fun to be able to experience that and just get back to my people a little bit more regularly. A lot of you I still stay in touch with, but it's not the same as being able to like hang out with you guys live. Kind of alongside that, I am starting to branch out just a little bit into some long form content here on my channel of games probably that are not The Sims 4. And I'm not putting like a ton of time into this, but I guess occasionally, maybe once a month, there are days where I really should be making something for YouTube, or I have a whole day that I could record something and I really just don't have it in me to actually build, to do research, to think about it. There's so many things that go into doing the work here on the channel, and sometimes I just don't have, I don't know, the mental headspace for it. It's those days that you go to work but you don't really want to be at work. But I am lucky enough that I have the option to occasionally maybe not participate in the work, and I really just wanted to branch out, do something a little bit different. I personally love long form content. It is so helpful for me to go to sleep to. I love putting things like that on in the background when I'm doing other things. You can kind of half pay attention to it, and it's easy to keep up on, and it's all together in one video. That's the big thing. I hate when I'm watching a Let's Play and it's like 100 parts long. I would much rather just sit down, play the one video, and it's most of the game, in my opinion. It depends on your preferences. So I did one the other day. I started out with a new game called Disney Villains Curse Cafe, and it is a coffee talk type game that you can make potions instead of coffee drinks for the Disney Villains characters. There are storylines that go along with it. There are, I think, right and wrong choices, although I'm a little bit confused. I didn't want to do too much research into the game before I actually played because I really wanted to go into it blind and not give myself any spoilers in any regard, and I hadn't really seen too many people talking about it or playing it, but it's right up my alley being Disney themed, and that so many of you obviously are here for. So I figured I would go and give it a go. I had such a good time with it. There are multiple Disney villains that you can focus on in the story playthrough, and I think you can ultimately do all of them in one go if you want to. It's not one of those games where if you pick a certain villain, it'll block the other ones out and then you have to replay. I think you can do everything in one go. That's at least been my partial experience so far, but I focused on Captain Hook. For my Peter Pan girlies, I pretty much did his entire storyline in my part 1 of the Let's Play. I am debating if I should do another one. I think I might, just to get back to it and hopefully finish out more of the storylines, and then I might give it a rest and do something else. But I would like to do Disney games, building games, and then there might be some room to branch out into some other side interests that I think a lot of you share if you watch my channel, such as maybe some Stardew Valley, definitely some Witchbrook, and Haunted Chocolatier when it comes out one day in the next decade or so. I would love to just dive right into Haunted Chocolatier when it becomes available and is big and important. That would be so much fun to experience. It would be like doing Stardew Valley before everybody knew everything about about Stardew Valley, and how exciting would that be? I'm also thinking about trying, I think it's called Tiny Glade, which is a building simulation game, and it's very cutesy and cozy, and you, I think, are primarily meant to build castles or rusticy villages, and that's very on par with a lot of the things that I already do here. I wanted to do some Dreamlight Valley decorating, but I am struggling with that because Dreamlight Valley is so annoying in that once you purchase the DLCs on, like how I own it, for example, Xbox, and I've already sunk all of the money in over there, I would have to, in order to record everything and have all of my stuff and have my DLC things, repurchase the game, repurchase both of the DLCs, and that's really annoying. I think that inside of like gaming needs to go. I don't know why that was ever normalized as something that companies can get away with, that you purchase these very, very, very expensive games on one platform, you buy the DLC, and then for some reason you're not given access or a code to play it on another platform. And the reality is, I would be more likely to purchase the DLCs again if they gave me a code for the base game because I already own it, or vice versa. And if they're not going to do that, then I will just never rebuy it. So they're losing money, because there is a potential for money to be made by the company if they realize that if you sell someone a game and then you give them the ability to have that game, re-own it without repurchasing it on multiple platforms, then they're more likely to rebuy the DLCs across the other platforms, in my opinion. I personally do not feel like a game that was supposed to be, and this is a little shade, but a game that was preached to be free to play at some point, and I actually bought like the Founders Pack for, so that was the top tier, very expensive pack, fully backed the game, fully supported the game, bought both of the DLCs as soon as they're available. I buy Moonstones every once in a while, not like super regularly, but I have. Somebody who has sunk money into it like me does not need to be repurchasing it again on other platforms, but it is such a shame because I want to decorate my valley with you guys, and I feel like a lot of you would probably like to see my valley because I have a style that I like to transition from this game, from The Sims 4, over into that, and I feel like you can almost feel some of my like Sims 4 style in Disney Dreamlight Valley, the way that I decorate, and now we have floating islands and all that, so I would love to be able to decorate some of them and show you guys kind of what I'm doing with my valley. I might get a capture card and record off of my Xbox and show you guys that way, but I haven't gone that far yet. It was just something I really wanted to do, and now there's a little bit of a barrier. I also saw when I was going through Steam looking at Disney games that there is a Disney Pixie Hollow Fairies game, and I've never played it, but it was super popular when it came out. It's older now, but I would love to maybe go into that and play that, and if you guys want to see it, let me know. Comment down below and let me know any other games, any other recommendations. Like I said, not going to take over the channel, not going to be the main focus here. Definitely always going to be doing the Disney save, and really most of my time goes into that, but occasionally long form, different, something Disney related, something building related, kind of fun. And if you guys miss hanging out with me from the old days of Twitch streaming, it's basically as close as it gets, and it is more time for me to just like chat about random things or about the game or whatever, whereas a lot of my speed builds are very much focused on what is being built most of the time. This would be something that's a little more personal. As you can see, the final stages of the New Orleans Cemetery taking shape here. I had to redo the terrain paint twice, fun fact. I exited the lot and came back in and it was all gone, which as you can imagine for a lot like this was devastating. That is a old glitch in The Sims 4, but appears to be back. I haven't experienced that in a very, very long time. We did get a patch as of me recording this, I think 3 days ago, and that has now become a thing, which is very, very disappointing if it's back. If it was fixed and now it's back. I guess I never really knew if it got patched out or not, but you will basically exit your lot and it just can't save the terrain paint. And what the glitch used to do, I believe, is if you uploaded it to the gallery, it also wouldn't save the terrain paint. And it would be so disappointing to hear that that has come back, because that was a very long time, very aggravating glitch. But I repainted it and it has stuck at least the second time that I did it. Hopefully I never have to do it again. As you can see, along with the main pathway that I've used the Castle Estate kit, and a ton of Castle Estate kit in this build, by the way, here, I also did the patio kit pathing, those little stones off to each of the individual above ground tombstones, and then I did terrain painting in areas that people are typically going to be walking a lot in front of each of them and around where they're touching the ground, or you know, like under the lampposts, under the seating, that kind of stuff that you would see in real life. So it was just a lot to make sure that everything's covered, everything's colored correctly, and I think it ultimately ends up turning out so cute, so like interesting and detailed. But let me know what you guys think think of everything of our first cemetery down below in the comment section. If you're excited for the new world, take your guesses for what you think it is. It's a small world, it's a tiny, tiny little world, and it's an old one. If you would like to support the Disney Save on Patreon, you can do so by clicking the link in my description box down below or the one at the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching today, and I will talk to you all in the next one.